Oh man, it's good to be back. More things have happened in the past week, 2 weeks, than I care to mention, but it's been tough, but things are better. We'll get into that later. I'm going to port the heads on my XS. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail exactly. Actually, screw it, I'll do it right now. Actually, no, I'll do it later. But for now, I'm trying to remove these valves with a rental tool from AutoZone, and it's not the best tool in the world because the clearance is very, very hard to get these valves out. But I just did it over here, so we'll try it again over here. Now, the one thing that I did have to do to these from AutoZone was that the little the hooks here. This one was like bent up a little bit. It wasn't 90 degrees, so I had to hammer it back down to 90 degrees because it wouldn't. When it was like that, it wouldn't hook onto the valve spring. So let's get it in here. You can't see this, but just understand that you know, it'll hook in, and you might only be able to get 3 spirals down. That might be the only purchase you can get, because that's all I can get, and it makes it slightly more difficult. And also, when you screw it down, do it by hand first, and make sure that you don't put the pressure plate, or whatever it's called, on top of the keepers, because then, you know, you're going to destroy your valve. You're probably going to bend it very slowly. Let's get this guy compressed. Until it doesn't want to go no more, and you can kind of see it because the spirals will become really compressed. And then 2-part process with my metal grabby stick. I press down to reveal the keepers and try my best to get these guys free. They might not want to go at first because, you know, they haven't been moved in a while, but eventually you'll see them moving, and you can just, hopefully, with a little bit of patience. Make me look bad here, guys. Okay, let's try it again. I know you can make a tool for this, but this also kind of, as you can see, kind of works. Doesn't really. Okay, there we go. Let me rotate it around a little bit. There we go. Come on. 1. Let's get that guy off. The second one should be pretty easy. 2. Both the keepers. And then very slowly, because the spring's still under a lot of compression, very slowly loosen her up. I'm actually surprised how little force it takes to compress these valve springs. But again, it is just a motorcycle valve spring, it's nothing crazy. And then by hand, and you're done. And let's keep track of all the pieces that are in here. There's the top, the outer spring, the inner spring, and then my 2 little keepers, which are right here. And that's your whole assembly. Now I am going to I'm looking at the valve guides and all this stuff here, and they look actually really good, so I'm not gonna bother replacing them. But also I'm looking at all the valves to see whether or not they need to be relapped or anything, and they actually all look pretty good. Like, if you can see here, it's there's still, like, you see the ring and you see how there's a little bit of black outside it. That's good, because that means that, you know, if this was silver all the way around, there would be a chance that it's not seating properly, and there's actually like gas getting into the head and such, and like blowing back through the valves, and you'd have like a lack of compression or whatever. This is a nice ring, so I'm assuming I probably won't lap these. They look good enough, but what I am going to do is mark them, make sure that all the valves go back to where they're supposed to be. And this is the intake left, so I'll go intake right, sorry, intake right. And then just store these guys over in the corner while I do the rest of the valves. So those are the two intake valves. Then we got the two exhaust valves, and those should be just as easy as these. I'm just going to put this over here for now, so that I don't lose them or knock them around on my bench. But yeah, I'll do these other two valves off camera. That's it. Like, you don't need that special C-clamp jaw sort of tool to get these valves out. You can do it just with, you know, you can do it just with this. Now, putting them back in, I don't know. I hope it'll work with this. If not, I'm gonna be a sad boy, but we'll get there. Okay, this is gonna be a little tough to show, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna port and polish the head. And let me just go over this a little bit. What I'm doing here has the ability to make things worse, not make things better. There's definite ways that can happen. There's a few ways that can happen. The first of which is if the valve stem guide down there, like if you nick that, or if you like mess with that, that can screw some things up. Obviously the valve ports here, if you like nick these guys and screw up this mating surface here, that can screw up. And also if you basically just open these things up too much. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of ways that you will not make this better. So I'm going to be very conservative with this, and basically just clean up the ports. Just clean them up. I'm not gonna, like some guys will do D-shaped exhaust or intake ports and like all this other stuff. That's really only beneficial if you have access to a flow bench and you have like a few of these heads and you can like test things out and like do the data and such. I don't have a flow bench. I don't know where to find a flow bench. I don't want to know where to find a flow bench. I don't care. I'm just going to clean this up. Now let me show you exactly what I'm going to be cleaning up and how I'm going to be doing it. Now this is the intake, and if you can see, if this will focus, whatever. Okay, you can kind of see how it's rough in there, how the surface is rough, and it's kind of rough all over. That's what we're going to smooth out. Now on the intake side, which is this side, we want to get this very smooth and polished. This is where the port end polish comes in. This is where you're polishing. You want this nice and, well, actually no, I'm sorry. Oh, I just lied. Never mind. You want this a little rough to aid in atomization. It's basically, if it's too smooth, like with the air flowing through the ports, what it can do is actually trap some of the fuel up on the top here. It basically creates a negative sort of pressure space and makes it so, you know, that the fuel kind of gets lost in here and droplets up and basically doesn't really do what you want it to. So with the intake, we're going to leave that a little bit rough, but we're still going to do things like smooth out these casting marks and such, and make it just a little bit nicer. So that's with the intake, and that's what we're going to do there. With the exhaust, the exhaust is a little bit more straightforward. Oops. With the exhaust, we're just going to clean it up. Like, that's the basics of it. And you can see, you know, it's obviously very sooty and such, and we'll take care of that. But the exhaust, we really just want the air to flow out as fast as possible. And the way to do that is to obviously take down the casting marks, the hump that the valve stem guide is in. We want to smooth that out so that it's as smooth a transition from the head to the valve stem guide as possible. And yeah, we basically want the purpose for the exhaust is basically just to make sure that the air exits the head as fast and as smooth as it possibly can. And another thing that you can do, now look at this. Now you can see in there where, if it focuses, it's almost there. Oh, come on, buddy, come on. Whatever. You can kind of see like where there are ridges and there are little humps and stuff in there. Especially over on that side. You see a big one right there. That's the sort of stuff we want to smooth out and polish. We don't have to worry about fuel atomization or anything like that, or negative space, blah, 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 whatever. You don't have to worry about any of that. The only thing that we're worried about is making that transition for the flow of exhaust through this port to be as smooth as possible. So how do I do it? Well, let me show you. So here's what I got to do the job. I got my Dremel clamped up in the vise here just to keep it steady. Got an extension, and I got some bits. I got a whole bunch of routing bits and then a whole bunch of polishing stones for when I'm doing the exhaust. So I'm going to put my glasses on and get to work, because this is going to take a very long time. Alright, 2 out of 3 are done. I just have to do this exhaust port. Whoops. Just have to do this exhaust port and then I'll be done. But so far, so good. Now, I'm still working on this exhaust port because I need to make it as smooth as possible. And I tried using these sanding stones over there, tried using those things, and just nothing was working right. So actually I just kept using the same bit, and now, oops, hi. And now that one's dulled enough that it's honestly a lower grit now, or a higher grit. Wait, high is, yeah, whatever, it's finer. And now I'm actually able to polish the exhaust where I need them, which is good. But this guy kind of stopped working at the moment, so I'm going to let it cool down and then look at it again. But the Chinese one lasted about 3 minutes, and I spent $5 on it, so I guess that's pretty good. Then I got an actual Dremel one, and this one's been lasting real good, but it just kind of stops. But it got hot, so maybe I just need to let it cool down a little bit. So let me show you the other bits of this. Excuse the mess, it is pretty messy. Here's the intake side here. Now note that the intake does need to be a little bit rougher. It needs to be as smooth as you can make it. But the things to note, this is going to be very hard to see. Let me see if I can... Is that going to focus? Kind of. The things to note is like where the valve guide meets that little lump, where the valve guide meets the rest of the head. That needs to be, that transition from valve guide to the head needs to be as smooth as possible. And also, if you note, like all the other like little ridges and such that I noted have all been smoothed out. A little bit easier to see over here. You can kind of see what I'm talking about with the ridge, with the transition here. You can see the transition is nice and smooth, from, you know, that little hump has been smoothed out. Excuse me, but again, I need to go over it some more. That one's actually pretty bad. This one is a little bit better. I used the worn out bit on that a little bit. And, actually, no, I'm sorry. This is the intake. This needs to be a little rough. So yeah, both of these guys need to be a little rough. Yeah, pretty much just made it flow nice as I could. And the roughness is actually going to aid in atomization. And I went over that before, and I still can't really explain it very well. The exhaust side, this is the first one I did, so you know it's going to be a little bit rough. But I do need to smooth this out. It is too rough. I can't make it mirror shine like I've seen some guys do. I just lack the equipment to do so. But this is definitely going to be an improvement over what was already there. So yeah. Obviously I didn't nick the parts that the valve is going to seat on. I kept those, you know, I didn't get anywhere near those, so I just don't have to worry about it. And then also the valve guide itself, I mean, I scraped up against it a little bit, but not in any point where it's going to damage anything or it's going to be, you know, detrimental to the engine. So yeah, nice and smooth. This needs a lot of work. The exhausts, well, this one hasn't even been done yet. But yeah, the exhausts need a lot more work to get them smooth. The intakes just are relatively straightforward, but the exhausts, yeah, I need to work on this a little bit. But the same rules apply. You know, make that little hump there as smooth as possible. Basically, just like smooth it out, and that's it. And yeah, the rig setup, obviously, as you already saw, was, you know, just put my Dremel in the vise and then just use the extension to get around in there. And I've been using a lot of bits, but majority of them have been like this one with a little bit of a taper. The really sharp ones like this one, I really didn't get too much play out of. It's really just, and this guy I used a lot. But really the one with the taper has been the one I've gotten the best use out of. Yeah, and then definitely the sanding stones just don't work. They work for about 2 seconds, and then, you know, this happens. If you see the silver on it, basically it just grinds away all the abrasiveness of it. So yeah. Obviously, I'm going to clean the shit out of these when I'm done. But yeah, it's almost like an afternoon's worth of work. It's really not too bad if you know what you're going for and what it needs to look like. Again, I probably won't be able to tell the difference too much because I'm also putting on the 750 kit. And that is going to, you know, give me much more power than any sort of port and polish is going to. But, you know, this will help. Even though this isn't any sort of scientific thing, I'm just going in there and cleaning things up. It can benefit you, so, you know, if you dare, give it a shot. Alright, I think we're about done. Just watching some playoffs. Hoping that Penguins bring it home. Like every Philadelphia Flyers fan, you eventually become a Penguins fan at finals and playoff time. So whatever, repping PA no matter what. So I think I'm pretty much done. These are the intake ports. As you can see, they're nice and smoothed out a little bit, but also like leaving it pretty rough, as previously described. You know, keeping fuel atomization in consideration. But the one thing that I did have to do to get the exhaust, because I remember I was saying that the exhausts weren't exactly where I wanted them, but now they are. Now that I'm feeling pretty good about them. Mostly because I got these guys. I got like 1 million of these 1/4 inch Dremel sanding discs. Like, That was it's $6 and I will never use all those. It's really, really great. What a deal. Thanks, Amazon, because a little packet of 2 of those is probably like $4 at like, where is it? At like Home Depot. So much, much better. Anyways, I'll show you the exhaust ports. With some sanding, these guys are pretty damn smooth. They're as smooth as I can make them. So, yeah. They're looking pretty okay. That's about as good as I can make them. I can't make them mirror shine. I don't have the ability to do so. But, you know what? That's pretty good, if you ask me. But that's intake. Hang on. Ugh. Exhaust. They're pretty smooth. But that's as good as I can do. That's as good as I can make it. So, that's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thoroughly wash this head, because there's obviously little metal marks everywhere. But what I'm probably not going to end up doing is relapping, just because like I look at the seating, the valve seating surfaces on the head, and they actually look pretty nice and clean. They don't look very, they look, very solid, and also on the valves themselves, they look pretty good. The exhaust valves are understandably, I'll show them to you, the exhaust valves are understandably a little bit worse than the intake valves. Here's the intake valves. You can see those are like pretty pristine as far as the mating surface goes. But then you look at the exhaust, and they're a little, oops, they're still pretty good, but because, oh god, there went my keepers. I'll have to find those. Because we're dealing with exhaust gases and everything's pretty hot and used, the exhausts are going to be a little bit more worse than the intake. But still, I don't think, at this point, like if I didn't have a problem with lack of compression or valve noise or anything like that prior to disassembly, so I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to leave it be. And I might actually, no, I have to say this. The extension that I've been using, I've had to go through 3 of these, and these are Dremel brand. Like, these things just do not hold up well. So, get your shit together, Dremel. But, that's a very, very basic polish, valve, what do we call this? It's not a porting, really. A little bit of a porting, but not much. But it's mainly just a polish, but that's cleaning up the excess heads a little bit, and yeah, that's about it, I think. Again, this is very basic. This is very, not sophisticated way of doing things. I understand that. I understand that there's better ways of doing this, and you need a flow bench and a couple heads to be able to accurately know whether or not you're getting performance gains. I know that, but I don't have the ability to get a flow bench or anything like that, nor do I want to find one. So it's cleaner, it's smoother, it's a little bit bigger. That's an improvement. And I didn't mess up the valve seating surfaces either, so I'm not going to be worse for wear whatsoever. Now I'm eager to try this thing out. It's called a brittle disc. It's basically a plastic flap disc. Put it onto your drill. And the idea is that it cleans up like gasket surfaces like better than anything in the world, and it won't harm it because it's plastic, and it's a much softer material than the metal, so you should just be able to just get into it super hard, and should clean it up really nice and easy. Beats the hell out of a razor blade and acetone. So let's see if it works. That's really good. Wow, that does a good job. Yeah. Sorry, look at. Versus what I didn't do down here. Nice. Cool. Yeah, so this guy was like, I don't know, with the attachment included, 20 bucks. That is pretty sweet. I'm gonna be doing this for a while. And then also, after this, I'll put this in the, you know, I'll clean it up and get all the metal bits out of it and start reassembling it. But, yeah, that works. Now, unfortunately, a long time ago, I messed up, and one of the, what do you call them, studs that come out of here, it got stripped, it fell out, oil gushing all over the place. Tried to fix it on the bike, but because of clearance issues, I made it worse. So now, unfortunately, I have to bump this up from an M6 to an M8. And I really don't want to do this, but what are you gonna do? So I'm really not trying to talk, I'm really trying to concentrate, because if I fuck this up, I need to get a new head. And all my porting and polishing and all my painting and all everything goes away. So I really don't want to mess this up, so sorry if I'm not talking.